We want to say a few things at the beginning of the meeting anyway. So we'll go ahead and start this morning's general session. The Franklin County Board of Commissioners for December 8th, 2020. So we kindly ask that everyone maintain the same level of decorum that they would as if this were a public meeting in person. Finally, for those of you that are calling in by phone, if you would line by pressing *6. So we will go ahead and begin this morning's meeting with, well, he's in his office. There he is. We'll go ahead and begin this morning's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Boyce.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's go ahead and get the, if I could get a motion for the approval of the minutes of the October 13th and October 20th, 2020 general sessions, the December 3rd, 2020 briefing session, the November 30th and December 2nd, 2020 administrative briefing.
So move.
Commissioner Brown, you're muted.
I am. Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved.
Thank you. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, before we begin this morning's agenda, I wanted to take a minute, if I could, and allow for a comment. I know I want to say something. I would imagine my colleagues would as well. But so late last week, we had an incident here in Franklin County where a young African-American gentleman was shot by an undercover SWAT sheriff's deputy, and it's obviously created quite a bit of tension here in the city and in the county, and made national news. And so I wanted to make sure that we had a moment this morning to have a little bit of a conversation about it before we moved on with our agenda. I was on the phone over the weekend with not only Sheriff Baldwin several times, but with Nana Watson from the NAACP several times. And I wanted to say something about this. I would imagine my colleagues do as well. But we have families involved here. And so this is happening in our country, in our county. It's happened, it's too much. Once is too much. And we are in a situation where a mother has lost a son, and there are families involved. And so talk to Sheriff Baldwin about this. Sheriff Baldwin is very, very committed to making sure that we find out what happened. And at the end of the day, making sure that this is handled properly. And once we've found out what has happened, doing the right thing about this. Because there are families involved and a mother has lost a son. He has a policy in place that Sheriff's Department doesn't investigate their own, because he wants to make sure that everybody understands that he's very committed to making sure that we get to the right answer here, to a fair and equitable investigation. And so the Marshal's Service immediately wanted to hand this over to CPD. Sheriff Baldwin wanted to hand it over to BCI. Chief Quinlan and the sheriff reached out to the folks at BCI. They agreed that they would do it, and then the Attorney General, Dave Yost, decided that they weren't going to do it. So now it is with CPD. The other thing I want, and so very much committed to making sure that a fair and equitable investigation is done. here, and that we find out exactly what happened, so that we aren't overlooking any of the families that are involved here, and that we know what happened, because again, the mother lost a son, and there are families involved. The other thing I'd like to say is that when we rush to judgment and we start putting stuff on social media when we don't know what happened, that doesn't help. It's one thing to put something on social media because we're upset. It's another thing to put things on social media that seem to be fact when we don't know if they're fact. And when public officials do it, elected or unelected, that is in particular not helpful. And so, I know that happened over the weekend. And so I would encourage our public officials, in particular elected officials, to stop doing that, because it's just not helpful and it's not smart. I want to make sure that the public understands that we as county commissioners and Sheriff Baldwin as the elected sheriff, and I know that the sheriff said this last night on television, are very much committed to making sure that we find out exactly what happened, and then doing the right thing and making sure that a just decision is reached, and that a just result is found, whatever that may be. And so, and it would be great if whether public officials, whether they're elected or not, would stop putting information that they aren't sure if it's true on social media. It's one thing to put supportive messages. It's another thing to put things that are just inflammatory on social media. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So I don't know if my colleagues or if anybody, the administrators or anybody, wanted to add anything to that.
I don't know. Marilyn, you want to go first? I do want to say something, but I defer to you first.
John and Kevin, I just want to say I am in total agreement with what you said, John. I think the families deserve to have all of the facts out and have this investigated fairly and accurately before any statements are made. Clearly, a mother lost their son, and that's a tragedy. But we need to have all of the facts, and any elected or other official that makes this a public statement about this before all the facts are out is irresponsible at best. And I think we owe it to the public to get all the facts out, and the sheriff deserves to have the facts come out in as accurate a way as possible, and the community deserves to know what really happened, and the families deserve to know what happened, and then we can deal with whatever the fallout is. This is a tragedy in the community, and it happens too often, but we need to know what really happened, and then we can deal with it. And, for the families, this is tragic, and there's no way around that, but let's get all the facts.
Yeah, thank you, President O'Grady. Let me thank you for raising this publicly, because I think part of the challenge is our ability to confront what are sensitive issues when we can. And I appreciate your leadership in allowing for this moment. So thank you. And for everything you said was spot on. The same with you, Commissioner Brown. The only thing I would add is that we are living in a time where there's a real opportunity to grow for us all. And we can grow in several ways. We can grow from the public policy format all the way to our racial insensitivities or sensitivities. On the public policy side, it begs the question, when is use of force appropriate? How is it appropriate? Should every officer have body cameras? Should they be on? When should they be off? I mean, all of the things that are relevant to the times that we live in today. The technology that exists just really allows for where every situation should have some element of technology related to the fact collecting perspective. And then the policies around when to use force. We are not law enforcement officers, so for us to sort of drive what that is, I don't know, but I think the conversation needs to happen. And in this, I think Commissioner Brown said it best. This is a tragedy, no matter how you look at it, no matter whose fault it was or who did this or who did. It's a tragedy whenever there's a life lost. And so from my standpoint, it's even more critical that we begin to have the public policy conversations where they need to happen, whether that's in the legislature, whether it's in the sheriff's office or wherever. We need to begin to rethink the world we live in today, as we know what law enforcement is, how it's delivered, and most importantly, how we can maintain and honor ethics and sort of standard to the conversation around policing and their judgment and their decisions. That being said, I wholeheartedly agree with my colleagues that, to make statements where you don't have the facts, and I'm just talking about myself, I'm not talking about anybody else, to make a statement, for me to make a statement when I don't have any of the facts, any of the information that is being gathered right now, that's not fair to any of the parties involved. And oftentimes it only amplifies what is already a sensitive and tough issue. And so I really stand with my colleagues on just how important it is, and quite frankly, how important it is to have the discipline. But quite frankly, that's what being a public official is all about. You have to have the discipline that when issues like this rise, sensitive issues, that you're not reacting to the winds. John and Marilyn and I have been at this quite a long time where we have that sort of natural experience discipline to not react. And I know my colleagues well enough to know they're not reactionist. They are very much, and that's an experience thing, quite frankly, that we know that we have to allow for the information to be gathered, for facts to be presented, and for whatever process is in place to take place. Now, when all of those things happen, there could be a time and a place for criticism, for comments, or for public statements and things like that. But I think in this stage, it's only fair to the victim and their family that we allow for the information to be gathered in an honest and direct way and let it be presented in the same manner. And so I stand with you, my colleagues. I appreciate your statements because, I'm getting calls from community activists, community leaders, and when they are referencing these other statements, and this was when a public official says a statement, it often is taken as fact, especially in the community. If Commissioner O'Grady issues a statement and says this is what happened, then people are going to say, well, Commissioner O'Grady, he has the information, so what he said, and so it's really important that we're careful about that. Because justice in a situation where there may be injustice or whatever, I'm not saying that situation, but in order for justice to occur, you have to allow the fact gathering process to take place. And, you cannot bias that with, pre-ordained statements before you have that. And I think that's, quite frankly, the discipline of the experience in being a public official. And I'm not criticizing anybody else. People are free to do what they want and say what they want. But at the same time, you have to be careful that your statements and comments could have ramifications and impact the environment situation. And so I'm prayerful for the family that their healing process begins as soon as possible for the loss of their loved one. I'm prayerful that the process that's being carried out with the investigation is a good and thorough process, and I'm prayerful that this community, we will begin to take on these issues in a way that, and whether the findings from this drive that or not, just like Commissioner O'Grady started off this meeting confronting this conversation, I think we need to do that as a community, not when there's a tragedy right under our feet, but in general. And so, I stand with you, with my colleagues, in that, we're going to wait and see what the information presents, and we'll go from there. And I know that the sheriff is committed to that. I truly believe that, and I'm hopeful. And I know, Nana Watson and folks like that are all over this. And Nana's very experienced. She knows that, she wants the facts and she wants the information. And so, we can grow and get better from this entire conversation, no matter what. So that's all I'll say. Thanks, Mr. President, for allowing this moment of conversation and discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyce. Well said. I appreciate that. Two issues I'd like to bring up. First, Administrator Wilson, if you wouldn't mind, for those who may be listening, or for those that are on today's call, and I'm certain for Mr. Hopkins' interest, I know Mr. Fuddy from the Dispatch did an article, but just for the purposes of this conversation, if you could recap for folks where we are as it relates to, because I know this Board of Commissioners is fully behind the idea of body cameras, but if you could recap where we are with that, that would be probably good for the purposes of this conversation.
Thank you, President O'Grady. Kenley Wilson, County Administrator. Yes, well in advance of this tragedy, I've been in communications with the sheriff's office on this topic of body cameras. And a few weeks ago, was looking at a most recent quote on the procurement of body cameras, with the intention to look at how do we implement body cameras in 2021. As you know, it's a complex process to implement body cameras. You have to develop a policy for the use of the cameras. As Commissioner Boyce pointed out, if you have the camera on, there's time when it has to be on, when it has to be off, those kind of things. You have to work, with the prosecutor's office and others to develop a policy for the use of the cameras, which we intend to do. And also the financial piece of this is not just at the point of procuring the cameras. You have legal requirements regarding the data and how the data is stored and how long the data is stored. But county administration is committed to working with the sheriff's office so that we can see this happen, the process in 2021. But we knew, had conversations and knew, unfortunately, we don't already have it, because this situation, we would be having more information available if they were implemented. But we are committed to the implementation of body cameras and working with the sheriff's office and securing the dollars necessary.
And Administrator Wilson, just so that folks are clear as well, the number of deputies in the sheriff's office patrol division is dramatically smaller than the number of folks on CPD's patrol, correct?
Yes.
So it's not like a one-to-one here as we compare the duties of the patrol division of the Franklin County Sheriff's Office versus CPD's patrol division. There's just a handful of, comparatively, there's just a handful of folks that not to say that it's not a big expense. It is a large expense for body cameras, but this issue, when CPD was addressing the issue of body cameras, we were just beginning to ask the questions of, hey, should we be looking at body cameras as well, because it's just a much smaller division, much smaller area of responsibility, much smaller patrol, and so we began asking those questions. This Board of Commissioners is all fully in support of this expenditure, and we've been in negotiation with the sheriff. We just simply haven't gotten it done, and it's a tragedy, because it would have been, as you say, it would have certainly been beneficial in this particular case. So just want to,
O'Grady,
because I know there's
Can
a
I
lot
just
of
add?
questions as it relates to this issue. I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to add a thought to what you were saying. When I was a legislator, I had a bill that would require body cameras for all Ohio law enforcement officers. And what we went through this whole year-long process to develop the bill. And what we found out, just to your point, what we found out, what body cameras do most of all is protect the police officer. They protect the law enforcement officer, because when people are on when they know they're on camera, they are less likely to do X. They are less likely to do, Y. And furthermore, it tends to take complaints down, because again, now you're on camera. You can't just say, well, this happened. Well, let's take a look at the tape. And so we have to remember, when we're buying body cameras, they mostly protect the law enforcement officer. And so, and in this particular case, where information is flowing from the community, from, every different way, access to that kind of resource in a fact gathering process is critical to what becomes their word versus their word, and so I'm really grateful about this conversation, because quite frankly, we're in an era where the technology is so advanced that there are cameras that turn on automatically the minute that you start interacting with someone, and turn off when you're eating lunch. There are ways the technology is that good today, where it's not intrusive, where if the camera stays on at all times to go to the restroom or something, it's not the case. They're very sensitive to the actions and operations of a law enforcement officer, and quite frankly, there are elements of it that we've got to think about. Like, for example, when it's recorded, this is all what I learned in a year of studying this issue. The data has to immediately go to a server away, so that there's no ability for it to be erased, for the camera to be stopped at a certain point. Once it's on and you're engaging with the public, that data is automatically transmitted to a cloud or a server or whatever. Well, cloud is a server, but it's automatically transmitted and it's there. And so there's really a worthwhile discussion on a policy level. It's not just, I'm speaking to Administrator Wilson, it is not just going to be a matter of purchasing cameras, because the other part is then the data storage and collection becomes an issue. Because remember, now every traffic stop, every ticket written, every time there's an incident, that data goes to the server, takes up space. And by state law, it has to sit on that server. We have to have it for so long. So we were looking at things like how long you have to have a routine traffic stop where you ran the light, you got the ticket, you paid it. Do we have to have that data footage for a year on the server taking up space? And so there's so many pieces of this that are much deeper than just simply purchasing the camera. So I'm excited to take this on next year. And I think this is something that will be a worthwhile endeavor on so many fronts. And at the end of the day, and most importantly, protecting those law enforcement officers, because they are out there with their lives on the line every day. And at the same time, the public should feel confident that they're protected, that they're going to be an honest engagement with law enforcement, and they can trust the situation. And that's the part we're working to get at. So yeah. I want to be a part of them. I'm saying all that to say, I've got a lot of background in this discussion. I'd love to pick this up further in the new year and delve deeper into the policy. But then I know that's more probably the sheriff that we've got to talk to, but I do have a lot of insight for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyce. We'll definitely be working through this. On President O'Grady's point, we, in order to have all certified uniformed deputies with cameras, would total 175 at this current point in time.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Administrator Wilson, Commissioner Boyce, great points. So I said there was 2 points that I had. Actually, Commissioner Boyce just reminded me I have 3, but the next 2 are both very brief. The next one would be, Commissioner Boyce reminded me of this. If you are a member of the public and you're listening, if you saw something, say something. The investigation is ongoing, and they are CPD is certainly looking for information here. So if you saw something and you know something, then please come forward and let folks know, let the department know, because they need information in this investigation.
John, do you know who they would report it to at CPD?
I do not, but I'm sure that we can help folks to find out.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm certain that CPD will be reaching out to the community because they are in the midst of this investigation, and they are trying to ascertain what happened here, and so they are definitely looking to put together a fair and impartial investigation and figure out the facts and know what happened. So if you saw something, say something. Number one. And then the second thing, or the last thing I wanted to do to call attention to, we've used her name a couple of times in this conversation, but Nana Watson, the president of the NAACP, has been fantastic in this entire situation, in this entire conversation. Nana does a great job in the community and always does, but she's done a great job in reaching out and touching base with the county commissioners, and reaching out and touching base with the sheriff, reaching out to the community, and she's just really been all over this issue from the very beginning. She's done a great job of disseminating information. She's done a great job of touching base with folks, connecting people to each other, making sure that conversations are happening, making sure that messages are getting to and from the right people. She's just been a great conduit. She's been great in this situation, and I wanted to make sure that not only did we mention her in this conversation, but that we gave her the proper amount of credit for what she's been in, how she's been involved here. She's not been throwing bombs like others have. She's really done a great job of making sure that the right folks are talking to the right folks and trying to get to the bottom of what's going on here. And so much credit to Nana Watson for the NAACP. All right. Anybody else? Well, I appreciate everybody this morning. This is just something that's happened too often, not only in our community, but in many others. And too many times this weekend, including first thing this morning, had conversation with folks who say, this could have been me, this could have been my son. And we need to get to the issue, and we need to make sure that this isn't, that this stops happening, and that this isn't somebody that we know or somebody's son. We just need to make sure that this issue is behind us at some point. And so anyway, I appreciate everybody this morning, and let's move on with our agenda today. So let me get to my agenda. I believe first on the agenda this morning is the engineer. We've already gotten approval of all the minutes, and so to Fritz Crozier, who's been eagerly awaiting. So good morning to the engineer's office.
Thank you, Commissioner. Resolution number 864-20, resolution requesting the Ohio Department of Transportation to reduce the speed limit on Revilla Road, Township Road number 201, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Administration. On behalf of Engineer Robertson, my name is Fritz Crozier, Chief Deputy of Engineering. First and foremost, thank you for the important and impactful discussion open in this morning's general session. Commissioners, although difficult to follow, the Engineer's Office's first resolution seeks authorization to request the Ohio Department of Transportation to investigate the speed limit on Revilla Road from Darling Road to Reynoldsburg, New Albany Road. ODOT will review Franklin County study and journalize a safe speed limit. County engineer received a request from Jefferson Township to study the speed limit on this road. A study has been conducted by Franklin County. It has been determined that a speed limit reduction from 55 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour would be appropriate. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 864-20.
Second.
Moved in seconded, voting Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 864-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 865-20, resolution requesting the Ohio Department of Transportation to reduce the speed limit on Darling Road, Township Road number 200, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
Commissioners, as noted, our next resolution, a similar resolution, seeks authorization to request ODOT to investigate the speed limit on Darling Road from Clark State Road to Havens Road. Again, ODOT will review Franklin County study and journalize a safe speed limit. The engineer's office received this request from Jefferson Township as well. A study was conducted by the engineer's office, and it was determined that a speed limit reduction from 55 miles an hour to 35 miles per hour would be appropriate. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 865-20.
I'll second.
Moved in second, and commissioners, I apologize if my connection is weak. I am looking to see what else needs to be done on my end. Moved in second, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 865-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 866-20. Moody Engineering Incorporated, consulting engineers appointed to assist the Franklin County engineer with general engineering services, Franklin County, Ohio, in the amount of $100,000.
Commissioners, as noted, this resolution seeks approval of a contract with Moody Engineering, Inc. for on-call engineering services. Moody is an MBE and EDGE certified local engineering firm and was chosen via the qualifications-based selection process. Moody's first task order will provide engineering design assistance on the recently viewed Deaver petition ditch. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 866-20.
Second.
Moved in seconded, voting Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 866-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 867-20, MS Consultants Incorporated, consulting engineers appointed to assist the Franklin County engineer in performing design engineering services for the Ferris Road at Walford Street Improvement Project, Clinton Township, Franklin County, Ohio, in the amount of $169,353.51.
Commissioners, our final resolution seeks approval of the contract with MS Consultants to assist with engineering design services for the Ferris Road at Walford Street Improvement Project. MS is a local engineering firm and was selected via the qualifications-based selection process. This project is funded with ODOT safety money and seeks to upgrade the existing signalized intersection with a modern mini roundabout. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval.
There are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 867-20.
Second.
Moved in seconded, voting Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady. Resolution number 867-20 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Fritz, thanks for sticking with us, bearing with us this morning. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Your resolutions were also very critical, so we appreciate that. Enjoy your holiday tree in the background. That's nice background setting you have there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Do we have anybody yet from the sheriff's office? I know they were checking on that, and if we don't, we can move on and come back to them later in the agenda. Is Dave or anybody from the sheriff's office on? All right, Dean, can you keep us informed as to when somebody from the treasurer's office is on the line, and we'll fit them in someplace else, and then we will move on to the office. I guess we should probably thank everyone for bearing with us this morning as we took a half an hour to have a conversation. But we, you know us, we appreciate you guys always indulging us when we think something's important to the community, and the conversation was, we think, something very important and very critical to the community. So thank you for bearing with us this morning as we went off topic for about a half an hour, but let's move on to the treasurer's office.
Thank you, Commissioner. Resolution number 869-20. Resolution authorizing a contract with ProTeam Solutions Incorporated to provide deliverable-based services to the Franklin County Treasurer System in the amount of $312,000.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Elise Thomas, the Budget and Purchasing Coordinator for the Treasurer's Office. We are requesting approval of the contract with ProTeam Solutions. This time it will be for a duration of 12 months, and this will continue to provide maintenance, oversight, and support for the Franklin County Treasurer System.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 869-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 869-20 has been adopted.
All right, so we are moving then on to Justice Policy and Programs.
Resolution number 870-20, resolution authorizing a sub-grant award for services with after-school All-Stars for the React Buddies program, matching first responder mentors with children impacted by the addiction crisis under the fiscal year 2018 Comprehensive Opioid Abuse Site-Based Program Grant in the amount of $91,741.09.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keelan Looney from the Office of Justice Policy and Programs. Our first resolution is requesting authorization to provide a sub-grant award to After School All-Stars for a pilot program with Columbus Fire Department's Rapid Response Emergency Addiction and Crisis Team, also known as REACT. With funding from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, this pilot program enhances the already existing partnership of these two programs to meet the needs of our community's children. The sub-grant award would fund the REACT Buddies program, matching first responders trained as mentors to children in the After School All-Stars program who have been directly impacted by the addiction crisis. The program and all training will be led by a family prevention specialist to meet the program objectives of developing pro-social relationships between the children and trusted adults, engaging the entire family to improve the child's living environment, and breaking the familial cycle of addiction by offering prevention and intervention to the children and linkage to resources for the family. As a pilot program, we'll be closely monitoring their progress and working with After School All-Stars to carefully detail the design and implementation so this program may be replicated in other communities. Pending any questions, I request your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 878-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 870-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 871-20, resolution authorizing a contract with the Franklin County Municipal Court for peer support services through CDC overdose data to action grant from Franklin County Public Health in the amount of $30,000.
Our second resolution is requesting authorization for a one-year contract with Franklin County Municipal Court for peer support services and their specialty docket, Learning to Identify and Navigate Change, or LINC Court. The Overdose Data to Action grant will be used to fund the peer support specialists to work with defendants who have co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders. Peer support remains an effective way to engage individuals early in the recovery program, utilizing lived experience to remove the stigma and isolation of addiction, which is even more important during today's situation with the pandemic. The peer supporter will provide linkage to the recovery community and consistent support throughout each individual's recovery journey. Pending any questions, I request your approval for this resolution.
There are no comments or questions. Move for adoption of 871-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 871-20 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, the Board of Commissioners.
Resolution number 872-20, resolution authorizing a contract with Crossroads Special Improvement District for participation in the Downtown CPAS program to provide transit services for eligible Franklin County employees.
Good morning, Commissioners. Zach Choleric with the Office of Management and Budget. This resolution would authorize a 5-year extension of the Downtown CPAS program with Capital Crossroads. Capital Crossroads developed the program in partnership with the Central Ohio Transit Authority and the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. This is a continuation of the Board of Commissioners' efforts to encourage public transportation that begun as early as 2008 with the initial CPAS program beginning in 2018. With us today is Casey Brandkamp from the Capital Crossroads Special Improvement District to provide some information on the program.
Thank you, Zach. Good morning, commissioners and everyone. My name is Casey Brandkamp, and I'm the program director for the Downtown CPAS, which is a program of Capital Crossroads Special Improvement District. The Special Improvement District, as you know, is an association of downtown property owners who pay property assessments to fund supplemental cleaning and safety services in the district. These property owners also pay a transit assessment to help underwrite the cost of free, unlimited access to all of Coda's service for downtown employees and some residents in the district. As Zach mentioned, this program is an innovative partnership with Coda and Warpsy. And the county was an instrumental partner early on during the creation of the program years ago and has an even longer history of providing a transit incentive to its employees. As I mentioned, prior to the pandemic, this program was exceeding expectations and doing all the things it set out to do. And we're confident that once we're through the pandemic, it will again. But we're not through the pandemic, which leads to a question Commissioner Brown posed during the briefing last week that I wanted to address. The question was essentially whether it was prudent to continue this program given the pandemic and increased remote working. It's an important discussion to have and one that our board had as well, as it was considering whether to collect transit assessments and continue the program next year. Our board ultimately decided that this program would be even more important to have in place next year as workers begin returning to downtown. And there's general consensus that we will start to see those employees returning to their job sites in downtown at some point next year. But there are workers who haven't stopped working in downtown and rely greatly on having the bus to get to work. So having that free transportation, given the financial strain that many are facing because of the pandemic, will be important. Our board also had a concern that if the program was suspended for a year, it might be harder to get it reinstated and get all the pieces back together. So we negotiated a cost reduction with Coda for 2021. Our agreement with Coda has an increasing payment schedule each quarter, starting with the first quarter where we'll pay 20% of the total program costs, and then stepping up to 40%, 60%, and then finally 80% in the fourth quarter of next year. We think that this might reflect the amount of workforce returning back to the office next year. So adding that up for the entire year means that we'll see a 50% overall discount for program participants, including the county, which is reflected in the legislation. And then one last note, Coda did not charge any CPAS participants for the days this year it didn't collect fares. They stopped collecting fares on March 18th. So the county is only paid for January and February and then part of March this year. And Coda does not have plans to reinstate fares for the remainder of this year.
Casey, I really appreciate the information, and I also learned that all of the employers are continuing to pay for their employees, so I appreciate that as well. And thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Pending any questions, I'd ask for your approval, commissioners.
Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, move for adoption of, oh my gosh, how did I do this again? 860, which one? It wasn't
Commissioner.
8 what?
We're at 872. We're at 872, Commissioner.
So just as a side note, here's why I get, this always happens. When I go off the screen, which has the original resolutions on it, and I go to look at a contract or look deeper into the resolution, so I click, I can never go back to the original. I don't know how to get back to the original, what I'm looking at for session. And so Dean, we'll have to kind of, maybe you can help me figure that out. And so now only on my screen, I have what probably is the draft, what probably is the briefing, where it doesn't have a resolution number beside it. And so I have to go over to the outline section. So maybe you can help me figure that out, because now I don't have that on my screen. So anyways, so it's 872.
Yes, Commissioner, and I'm happy to help you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, move for adoption of 872-20. Let me see if I can.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Okay,
Resolution number 872-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 873-20, resolution authorizing the issuance, repayment, and extension of various interfund loans.
Commissioners, this resolution is the annual review of the interfund loans that have been provided for cash flow purposes to various agencies. This year's resolution includes the repayment of 2 loans, the partial repayment of 1 other, and the extension of 11 other interfund loans by 1 year that are still required for cash flow purposes. Pending any questions, would ask for your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 873-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 873-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 874-20, resolution authorizing appropriation adjustments for the county's wellness incentive and public transportation benefit programs, termination payouts, workers' compensation expenses, and to offset budgeted vacancy reductions.
Commissioners, this is the annual resolution to review payroll obligations to ensure that agencies can meet payroll for the end of the year. For the general fund this year, there were 9 agencies that required appropriation adjustments, including $7.3 million in transfers and $7.2 million in supplemental appropriations. For non-general funds, there were 12 that required adjustments. Of these, $2.4 million required supplemental appropriations, while $3.2 million were able to be absorbed within current appropriation levels. Pending any questions, would ask for your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 874-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 874-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 875-20, resolution authorizing the distribution of CARES Act funding to respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19.
Commissioners, this resolution would distribute $7,029,400 from the monies provided through the Coronavirus Relief Fund that was authorized by the CARES Act. The allocation includes $4 million for the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board, $1,080,957 for Children's Services, and $1,948,443 for the Office on Aging. With us today are representatives from each of those agencies. First, I believe both Scott and Erica from Adam H are here, and turn it over to them for a few words.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's great to be with you today. I am going to defer to our new Chief Financial Officer, Scott Fisher, for our comments on this CARES Act funding allocation.
Thank you, County Commissioners, and good morning. Adam H. Board of Franklin County is grateful for the CARES investment of $4 million from the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Throughout this pandemic, community-based healthcare providers have been the front lines, remaining open to provide vital mental health and addiction services to Franklin County residents. Adam H's network of providers has been innovative and responsive to community needs. They've been delivering services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and in new ways to ensure safety. This includes the addition of PPE, telehealth, new safety protocols, and new protections for both patients and staff, all of which comes with unbudgeted expenses. As part of its COVID response, the Adam H Board allocated $11.6 million in levy funds as block grants to support providers during this pandemic. 95% of our providers have seen a revenue reduction from prior year, and 70% of providers have seen an expense increase from prior year. These block grants helped ensure they could keep their doors open, invest in safety measures, and keep their staff employed. Providers in the Adam H network took additional steps to secure additional funding from other sources to support their operations during the pandemic. 75% of our providers applied and were approved for Paycheck Protection Program loans. We are fortunate that 70% of our providers have not laid off any of their workforce. Still, the needs are great. The stress from the economic and health impacts of the pandemic, coupled with social isolation, are taking their toll. Our community's opioid crisis continues to grow more dire, and suicide rates are climbing. A strong network of mental health and addiction services is more important than ever. This additional CARES funding will allow Adam H. to be more nimble in our continued response to needs relating to COVID. Thank you for helping our community's behavioral health safety net remain strong and well prepared to successfully navigate this continued public health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next to speak is Dan Shook, Chief Financial Officer for Franklin County Children's Services.
Well, good morning, Commissioner Boyce, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner O'Grady. My name is Dan Shook, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Franklin County Children's Services. I would like to thank you for your consideration of our COVID-19 related expenses presented for CARES Act funding. 2020 has brought significant challenges for all of us due to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the onset of the pandemic, many agencies, including Franklin County Children's Services, had to quickly adapt to closures and work from home options. Although these adjustments were difficult and all, they were even more difficult for agencies where changing to a virtual environment was unprecedented. FCCS works closely with our juvenile court partners to move hearings and permanency trials forward as quickly as possible. However, due to the difficulties of moving into a virtual environment for this work, many hearings and trials were continued to a future date. Continuances of permanency hearings and trials meant children remained in agency custody longer, resulting in additional cost. Although SCCS continues to work with the court to get caught up on continued permanency hearings and trials, the impact of additional paid placement days will continue into the foreseeable future. Approximately 60% of the children identified within its request remain in agency custody. Additionally, with the recent rise in COVID-19 cases causing Franklin County to be designated as level 4, and in consideration of the Franklin County and City of Columbus stay-at-home advisory, the court has been once again challenged to reduce the number of face-to-face hearings and trials. As seen previously, this will likely increase the number of continuances. If this does occur, FCCS will track these continuances to ensure ease of calculating future COVID-19 related paid placement costs. FCCS has seen an increase in the length of stay of our children in custody over time, from approximately 8 months to 12 months. This increase in length of stay began with the onset of the opioid epidemic and has been further compounded in more recent months due to COVID-19. Providing upfront services to prevent children from coming into agency custody or quickly moving them to permanency for those who do is of the utmost importance. A shorter length of stay reduces trauma associated with placement and ultimately reduces paid placement costs. Upon approval of the resolution and receipt of CARES Act funding, FCCS will utilize these dollars to continue and to enhance prevention and permanency efforts. To ensure our success, FCCS currently partners with many local community-based organizations to assist in this effort. As approximately 60% of our children in custody are children of color, FCCS will further utilize these dollars to expand partnerships with MBE organizations who can support this work and better serve this population. Again, I want to thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Dan. And next is Orville Jones, Director of the Franklin County Office on Aging.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners and County Administrator Wilson. On April 1st, with the help of the support of the Board of Commissioners, Office on Aging began offering free home delivered meals for residents 60 or over in Franklin County during the pandemic. Since the launching of this new initiative, Office on Aging has provided over 560,000 free home delivered meals to over 4,200 older adults in the community. Given that older adults are at a greater risk of developing more severe complications from the coronavirus, ensuring that they have access to adequate nutrition during this time is critical, and to some, even life-saving. Franklin County Office on Aging continues to recognize the need and plans with the addition of the CARES dollars to extend the free home delivered meals through April 1st, 2021. I would like to encourage anyone over 60 to have questions on how to receive free home delivered meals to give us a call at 614-525-6200. Thank you.
Thanks, Orville. And Commissioners, with this allocation, we'll utilize pretty much the full allotment of the $76.3 million of the coronavirus relief fund that was authorized by the CARES Act by the December 30th deadline. The Office of Management and Budget will work with the Auditor's Office to make sure those dollars are transferred accordingly, and we'll report this as our part of our final report for January 11th, 2021 for the fourth quarter. Pending any questions, would ask for your approval of this resolution.
I'll just start by saying thanks, Dan, Erica, Scott, and Orville, the presentation, all of the work. I mean, you all are on the front line for real, because, and in coronavirus times in 2020, your front line has widened and lengthened on so many levels. And so, Administrator, I just can't think of a better distribution and use of these resources. I believe that's what the resources are here for, to stabilize our community. And the folks that you all serve were vulnerable before the coronavirus. And so they were in their own pandemic, even before the pandemic. And so this is a very tactical and strategic approach to really getting at some of those core issues. We know that substance abuse and mental health issues are on the rise. We know that our seniors are having greater challenges with isolation and access to other resources. We know that our children throughout our system are impacted on a variety of levels that we've got to provide resources for. And so this is one of my favorite parts of being a county commissioner, is that, and even when I got to tell you, Commissioner Brown and O'Grady, when I was on city council, we always knew that the county was at the core of that fight on human services, and when we were at the city, we knew that was sort of the county thing, if you will. That's their thing. They are the safety net for our community. And so it just feels so good to be a part of that, because I know the lives that are being impacted. I see them, I interact with them, and I know their stories. And so, so I'm really, this is, we've done a lot with our coronavirus funds. I think we've been very strategic throughout the way we've used them. And I'm in tune with what we're doing nationally because of NACO. And I would put our use of the funds at top shelf, because I hear about what everyone's. I chair a finance committee for NACO, and we talk a lot about this kind of thing. And I think we've been stellar with how we've approached it in our strategic way. And this just shows that, because this is core protection of the most vulnerable. So I don't have anything else to say other than to say this is a good resolution. Excited about it. Are there any further comments or questions?
Kevin, I said that exact same thing to Ken yesterday, and I couldn't agree with you more about our use of the CARES Act funds. But I think these three agencies exemplify our use in this case with seniors, children, and those with mental health and addiction services. Our human services are the people in our community who are suffering the most, really deserve to have the services enhanced to a point where we can really serve the community who are the most vulnerable at this time. Yeah. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's 92 in Cleveland, and the people that she's living with are also isolated and so suffering because of their isolation. And the use of those funds can be so helpful in senior options, but in mental health and addiction services also. And for children in our community that are so vulnerable, it couldn't be any better than having children's services have those funds. So I think this use is so important.
Marilyn, you're absolutely right. Commissioner Boyce, you as well. At this time, dealing with all the things that we're dealing with during this pandemic, these three agencies are crucial to our residents. I see it here every day with my kids, what they're going through during this pandemic, dealing with all the issues they have to deal with school and with one thing after another with what they're faced with every day. Certainly we as county commissioners see what our seniors and those that are dealing with mental health and addiction issues are dealing with. And so, there's no question that these three agencies are dealing on the front lines every single day. I mean, it seems like we use the phrase front lines day in and day out around here. But it is, I feel like we are on the front lines. As I was saying the other day, yesterday, when we were having a moment remembering December 7th and another time and another generation. But I feel like we have been on the front lines every day since March, and we're going to continue to be on the front lines every day until this thing's over. But your agencies are certainly stepping up every single day, and we appreciate everything you're doing on behalf of our residents. And so, thank you, and keep it up. Sorry to tell you, keep it up. We need you to keep it up. We all need to keep it up, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
If there are no further comments or questions, move for adoption of 899. No, I'm just kidding. 875-20.
Second.
Dean, I think you're.
Dean, are you frozen?
All right.
Are
Do we
you
have
on?
an assistant clerk lined up here or something?
Commissioner Boyce, I'm
Oh,
back.
there he is.
He's back.
I apologize. Commissioner Brown was right. My connection has been a little fuzzy today. Can you hear me okay?
We
Yeah.
can.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce, I heard your motion. Commissioner Brown?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Resolution number 875-20 has been adopted. And Commissioner O'Grady, we do have someone on the line from the Sheriff's Office now, sir.
I got that message. So let's go back to the county sheriff.
Resolution number 868-20, resolution authorizing an agreement with the Raising the Bar Performance Group to provide implicit bias training during in-service supervisor training in the amount of $23,500.
Albert, are you there?
Somebody?
Hello, Albert.
I did not make it up. I assure you. We had.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
There
Yes.
you are.
Welcome,
I
Albert.
apologize. I apologize for the delay this morning. My name is Albert Smith, and I'm Assistant Finance Director for the Sheriff's Office. Our resolution authorized an agreement with Raising the Bar Performance Group to provide implicit bias training. The training will take place during our supervisor training from December 7th through December 10th of this year. The cost of the training will not exceed $23,500. Pending any questions, I request approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 868-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Resolution number 868-20 has been adopted.
Other than to say
Thank you, Commissioners.
thank you, Albert, that it's great that we're doing, that Dallas is providing implicit bias for the training for the deputies. That's good stuff.
I agree.
Need to go back to the Board of Commissioners and do the last resolution, which is moving us into executive session.
Resolution number 876-20, resolution of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners to convene into executive session for the purpose of considering details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols.
Move to go into executive session.
Commissioner Boyce, I'm sorry. I actually need you to read the language, sir.
Oh, I do? Okay. Move to convene into executive session for the purpose of considering details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Resolution number 876-20 has been adopted, and we are now in executive session. For those of you moving into executive session, I will move you into our breakout room. For those of you that would like to wait, you're more than welcome to. And for everyone else, thank you for your attendance.
Can I ask real quick, Earl, do you have any questions before we go in? or do you just want to wait until we're done?
Yeah, so just a quick question, and it's in relation to how the meeting initially started, with going over and kind of expressing you all's thoughts about the killing of Casey Goodson, the young man that was killed while entering his home in the Linden area, I believe late last week. And so just generally, like with how the year has transpired, it seems like these type of incidents have been too commonplace. So generally, what kind of emotions, because I know you all expressed what type of actions that have been taken so far in response to it, but what immediate emotions and feelings did each of you all have upon hearing the news?
You know, I got contacted late Friday night, and it was, I think for me it was kind of exhaustion. Exhaustion of not the week, but exhaustion of the year, exhaustion of, not again, not this situation in this year again, not this situation in this community, not this situation in this year, not this situation after what we've been through. Everything from the summer that we had with George Floyd to the year that we had with the racial tension through the election, just everything that we dealt with this year, both as citizens and residents and public officials, everything that we dealt with that's just this community had to deal with. It was just my first reaction was just exhaustion over this issue. Why do we have to deal with this again? Haven't we learned from this by now?
I think I felt incredibly, well, I know I felt incredibly sad and exhausted. But my first reaction was incredibly sad at the thought of another shooting like this, tragic shooting, and not knowing really what happened. I was frustrated, but sad, just sad and tired. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, when you first heard about it, you know how you get that flutter in your heart sometimes. It almost feels like your heart is either pumping too much blood. They're just like an adrenaline shot, but it flutters and almost feels like, oh, what's going on here? I get that feeling now when I hear news like that. And tired, exhausted are definitely words I would say, but I tell you, for me, this has been a lifetime experience. It's discouraging, and it is hurtful. And my heart goes out to that family. The other hat that I wear, though, Earl, is, I've been doing this a long time, like John and Marilyn. I've been in public office for over 20 years. And what I know for sure is it takes discipline to not react to these kind of situations. And that comes from experience. John and Marilyn are very experienced leaders. And so they know better than to react to what you hear. We know no matter whatever the facts are, it's still a tragedy. That doesn't change. But Earl, there's a level of discipline that we all, and restraint that we all have to employ, because in fairness to that young man and his family, it's so important that the facts be gathered, a process take place, and that we react to that versus the initial reaction. And so while my heart flutters just thinking of how young that guy was and his whole life ahead of him, and it makes my heart flutter, maybe even skip a beat. On the flip side of it, though, we have a job to do as elected leaders, and that is to ensure that a process takes place that employs justice, employs a vision of the future and the things that we can do to adjust public policy so that in the future, we have the tools and resources we need. And so, what I think the conversation should be zeroed in on today is simply body cameras, policy around use of force, and I go on and on. But that's the discipline of being an elected leader who's been around the block a couple of times. You've got to focus on information. And I've said this, the last point I'll say, I've said this lots of times before, and that's, as elected officials, we are used to being at the mercy of the information that is provided to us, meaning that John, Marilyn, and I mean, Ken is the practitioner, Joy Bivens is the practitioner, Orville Johns is the practitioner. We are, I would describe us as the overseers of the system, but we rely on the information that we get from these key people. And that always puts us in a vulnerable state. But that's the discipline of being an elected leader who's been around the block a couple of times, that you know how to take information in, the right things to ask and the way to think of it. And so for me, Earl, I'm really zeroed in on what the facts that are presented are when they are. I'm zeroed in on how we can think in the future to prevent this and to not be in a situation to protect the safety of law enforcement officers and the public, and do it all in an honest and transparent way. So, I could go on and on. I won't, but this is a sort of twofold. If I was split down the middle, one side would be split where my heart is, and the other side would be split where my profession is, and knowing what I know about sensitive situations. So,
Earl, when Commissioner Boyce talks about, he's right on all this stuff, and I agree with him on all this stuff, and we all, answered and talked about exhaustion, and the weekend, as the weekend went on, I continued, to feel exhaustion, and then anger and exhaustion and anger. But, you read and you see these social media posts that just aren't helpful, and the exhaustion just gets worse, because you're just shaking your head. And you're getting mad, and it's making you more exhausted. And so, Commissioner Boyce is absolutely correct. You have to react on the information you have, and you have to, you have to let, you have to guide that information and work with that information, and you have to, you have to let the investigation go. And make sure that the investigation is fair and impartial, and advocate for that every step of the way. But what you can't do is stoke public opinion, because you're saying and doing the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're finally, at a point where we can move this thing forward. And, I'm hoping that now, we're finally going to get to a point where, we're going to move this thing forward. So, we'll see.
Hey, John, I had one more point too. You made me think of something. I know we've got to go in executive session, so I'll be brief, but, this really is, there's a deeper and underlying, when you ask, how did you feel when you first saw it? There is a deeper underlying question that really links directly into our work in poverty and racism that I feel is a part of that bigger, the construct of the conversation. What I mean by that is, when you look at African-American males, 1 in 3 African-American males are likely to go to jail in their time. I don't want to go through all the statistics, but Black males make up 6% of the population of the state of Ohio, but almost 50% of our correctional institution. Dropout rates, graduation rates, hypertension, diabetes, everything that you can think of, African-American males are at the bottom rung in nearly every category. And so when I see stuff like this, where a life gets taken that that, you think to yourself, what could we have done to prevent the scenario altogether, because it is linked to poverty, it is linked to racism, it is linked to employment and housing and all these things that we're studying and looking at. And so, it's why I wake up every day and feel good about my role as commissioner. There are so many different times I'm getting pulled in different directions. And I come back to why I love this job so much is because I think that our work in poverty and racism is core to the quality of life improvement for the next decade or two in Franklin County. And I really, really believe that. And so when you ask me how I feel when I see that, I always, while my heart flutters and shakes and I get that knot in the throat, I also am reassured and reinvigorated by the work that we're doing. You're having two colleagues that are completely vested in this conversation on a level that I think doesn't exist across the country, and I know this because I'm engaged with a lot of these conversations across the country. And so we are in a different place. We don't get it right all the time as a community. Our tragedies and challenges and mistakes are going to happen, but knowing that we are confronting this and that everyone is watching us is a different lens, because that means that young man, while his death is a tragedy, we can make it so that he didn't die for nothing, that his mark and print in his time here means something for the future of Central Ohio. And that's what I believe we're working to do in our work. I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe in our work in that way. And I generally don't speak for my colleague, but I can say on this one, I know I'm speaking for them when I say that in our heart of hearts, we believe what we're doing is important in this broader conversation. So when I see that while my heart flutters, I know that we are moving the needle. It's going to take some time, but we're moving the needle, and this is different, and this is important, the work we're doing. And that young man won't have died in vain, because we are going to continue to work at racism, work at poverty, work at better law enforcement, better engagement with the community. And you can rest assured, whatever comes of this, we will get better from it. We will learn from it and grow, no matter what the facts come out to be in this case. Sorry for that.
You got what you need, Earl?
Yes, thank you, commissioners.
All right. Now let's head off into
executive session.
Thank you, everyone. Please stand by.